The slave market on planet Goreth 9 was always loud. People shouted, laughed, and pushed each other. Bright lights flashed from neon signs. Rich aliens from across the galaxy came to buy the weak, the poor, and the desperate. But in the center of all that noise, there was silence. A thin alien woman sat on the auction platform. She had soft gray-blue skin and long black hair that fell around her shoulders like a worn curtain. Her clothes were torn. Her body looked fragile, like it might break if touched. But her eyes were strong. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. Instead, she gently held the hand of a small alien child beside her. The boy was no older than 5 Earth years. He had the same dark hair and pale skin, but his cheeks were sunken, his eyes half closed. He hadn't eaten in days. The auctioneer, a fat green-scaled alien with sharp teeth, laughed as he shouted to the crowd. Only 5 credits for the female and child. Come on, she's weak, but she can still work or be used for fun. The crowd laughed. She's broken, one alien said. She's not even worth 5 credits. Another sneered. The mother said nothing. She just looked at her son. Then, slowly, she raised his small hand and pressed it against her forehead. Take me, she whispered softly, but feed him. No one in the crowd heard her words. But one man did. He stood near the back of the market, arms crossed. A human, tall, with a hard face and eyes that had seen too much. His name was Jack Carver, a former Earth soldier now traveling the outer colonies. Jack wasn't here to buy anyone. He had come for ship parts. But when he heard the auctioneer laugh, something pulled his eyes toward the stage, and then he saw her. Not the body, not the shape, not the scars on her arms or the bruises on her neck. He saw her eyes. They didn't beg for help. They didn't beg for mercy. They only asked for one thing. Feed my child. The boy looked like he could die any moment. And yet, she stayed calm, strong. She had already decided to sell herself, just to save him. Jack took a step forward. 10 credits, he said. The crowd went silent. The auctioneer blinked. You, human, did you say 10? Jack nodded. For the female. Not the boy? The auctioneer asked, confused. No, just the mother. Whispers filled the air. What does a human want with her? He won't get much use out of that one. The auctioneer grinned wide. Sold. 10 credits to the human. The mother looked up slowly. Her eyes met Jack's. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She only looked at him with quiet, confused shock. Jack walked up to the platform. He stopped in front of the child. The little boy looked up, shaking, eyes dull and lifeless. Jack reached into his pocket and took out a small protein bar. He gently placed it in the boy's hand. Eat, Jack said softly. Then he turned to the mother. Come with me. She hesitated. Her hand still rested on the boy's head. You said you only wanted me, she whispered. I lied, Jack said. He'll eat first, then we'll talk. The auctioneer growled. You only paid for the female human. Jack turned slowly, pulled back his coat, and let the crowd see the pistol at his side. Try and stop me, he said coldly. No one moved. Jack helped the mother down from the platform. She picked up her son, who was now chewing the protein bar. Like a starving animal, she followed Jack without saying a word. As they walked through the dirty streets, she spoke again. Why did you buy me? Jack didn't answer right away. Finally he said, because no one else did. That night, Jack brought them to a small shelter on the edge of the city. He gave her food, gave the boy a blanket, then left them alone in a clean, warm room. Woman sat beside her sleeping child, still confused, still afraid. She held the child close, eyes staring at the door. In her hand, she held a small, dirty piece of cloth. A drawing was on it, her son's drawing. It showed her, him, and a bright yellow sun above them. She pressed the cloth to her lips. Thank you, She whispered into the silence, but she still didn't know what kind of man had bought her, or what he truly wanted. Raja sat in the corner of the room like a shadow. Her arms were wrapped tightly around her knees. The floor was clean, the lights soft, but her mind was filled with old screams. She had been sold before. And every time, pain followed that, so when the door creaked open, she didn't look up. She waited for the boots to stomp toward her, for the hand to grab her hair, for the voice to command her to strip or kneel. But none of that happened. Instead, the human. Jack walked in holding something strange. It was a bowl. Steam rose from it. The smell was warm. Strange, but good. Jack placed it gently on the table, then backed away. No words, no orders. Eat, he said. Raja slowly raised her eyes. Her heart beat fast. Was it a trick? Poison? She crawled over, one hand always ready to defend. She picked up the spoon and took a slow bite. Her eyes widened. She hadn't tasted real food in months. Tears formed without permission. She hated that. Plot continues. Jack leaned against the wall and watched quietly. His face showed nothing, just calm. He didn't stare at her body. He didn't ask questions. When Raja finished, she wiped her mouth and turned to him. "Why did you feed me?" she asked, voice dry. "You looked hungry," Jack said. "No one feeds a slave for free. You're not a slave." She stared at him. "You bought me. I bought your freedom." She didn't know what that meant. No one ever bought aliens. For nothing, she stood, still weak, and stepped back. "What do you want from me?" Jack sighed. "Nothing, just rest." He placed a soft gray blanket on the edge of the bed, then turned to leave. But before he stepped out, Raja spoke again. "My son," she said. Jack paused. "I left him in that place." "He's still there." "I know," Jack replied. "I'm gonna come back for him." Her hands clenched. "You're lying. No one goes back." "I do," Jack said simply, "but not tonight." Later that night, Raja didn't sleep. She sat in the dark room, watching the door. The blanket lay untouched beside her. She found a small fork on the table. She hid it under the bed, just in case. In her world, kindness never lasted. It always turned into something worse. But her son's drawing was still in her pocket. That little cloth sketch he made of her, him, and a home they never had. She clutched it tightly. She whispered into the dark, "Please don't hurt him." And still, the human didn't return. Not with chains. Not with threats, only silence, suspense ending. Suddenly, the hallway light turned on. Footsteps. Rhea grabbed the fork. The door opened. Jack stood there. He didn't come in. He didn't speak. He placed something on the floor and stepped back. It was a small child's jacket. Then without a word, he left. Raja held the jacket in her shaking hands. It was her son's size. Was he serious? Was he really going to bring her boy back? Her heart beat faster. Hope was more dangerous than hunger. Asterisk. Asterisk. The rain tapped gently against the metal roof. The small room was warm now, filled with soft air and quiet shadows. On the bed, Raja finally slept, with her arms wrapped tightly around the jacket Jack had left her. But in her sleep, her body trembled. She moved her lips, breath quick, voice barely a whisper. "Raelian." The name slipped out like a broken song. Jack was passing by the door. When he heard it, he stopped. His hand froze on the wall. He had heard many names during war, names of brothers, names of lovers, names of the dead, but the way she said this name, it was different. He opened the door just a little, not to watch, but to check. Raja was curled up like a child. Her cheeks were wet with silent tears. "Please, not the child. Take me instead." Jack stepped back quietly and closed the door, and in that moment, something shifted inside him. She wasn't just another alien he saved. She was a mother, fighting for the only thing she had left. Plot continues. The next morning, Raja woke up. Fast. She looked around, panicked, as if expecting to be chained again. But the room was still quiet. A small piece of fruit and clean water sat beside her. She touched the jacket beside her heart. And then she heard footsteps. Jack walked in, holding a datapad. His face was calm, but his eyes looked more tired than before. You said his name. Jack said. Raja froze. In your sleep, you said Raelian. Her throat tightened. She nodded slowly. He's my son, she said. I sold myself so he could eat. Jack nodded. You said that. Raja looked down. I didn't expect you to believe me. I believe you, Jack said. Silence filled the room for a moment. Then Jack tapped the datapad. I asked around. The slavers didn't want to sell him. They called him too small, said he'd bring no profit. Raja's hands turned to fists. I'll get him, Jack said. But they might fight me. Why? She asked. Why risk yourself? Jack looked at her for a long time. Then he said something simple. Because someone should. Flashback character. Moment. That night, Raja sat with her back against the wall. She stared at Jack while he fixed a broken light in the corner. You lost someone, she said softly. Jack didn't answer. You look like someone who knows how it feels. To be left behind. Jack stopped working. He didn't look at her, but his voice came low and cold. I had a wife and a daughter. They died during the colony riots. Raja covered her mouth. I couldn't save them, Jack said. I was off-world. Too late. To help, Raja stood slowly and walked closer. I'm sorry, she whispered. He nodded once. So now, when I see someone like you, I can't walk away. Suspense ending. That night, Raja packed a small fruit piece and saved it for Raelian. She sat by the window, staring at the stars, whispering her son's name like a prayer. Suddenly, she heard Jack's voice from the hallway. I'm going now. Raja rushed to the door. Let me come. No, Jack said firmly. If they see you, they'll hide him, or worse. He turned to her one last time. If I don't come back by sunrise, Raja shook her head. You will. Jack didn't reply. He just walked into the dark rain with one weapon, one plan, and a promise he refused to break. Asterisk, the slave market was different at night. There were no crowds, no shouting, just shadows. And guns. Jack stepped through the gates alone, one hand in his coat, the other holding a picture, a child's messy drawing of a mother, a boy, and a bright yellow sun. The same drawing Raja had clutched every night. He showed it to the first guard. I'm here for this boy, Jack said. The guard laughed. No. Children for sale tonight, human. Jack didn't laugh back. I'm not here to buy him. The guard blinked. Then why are you here? Jack's eyes turned cold. I'm here to take him. Plot continues. Inside the back rooms of the slave market, Raelian lay curled up on a dirty blanket. His lips were dry, his eyes swollen. He held a scrap of cloth close to his chest, his mother's scent still on it. He didn't cry. He just stared at the door, waiting. A door that never opened. Until now. Outside, Jack was already surrounded. 4 guards. 2 blasters. 1 warning. Turn around, human. You're not leaving with anything. Jack raised his hand slowly. I don't want trouble. Too late, the biggest one growled. This is slaver turf. You walk in like a hero, you get buried like one. Jack smiled a little. I didn't come unarmed. From under his coat, he pulled a small sphere and dropped it. The guards laughed. What's that supposed to be? Boom, flash, smoke. Screams. Jack moved through the confusion like lightning. 1 hit. 2 hit. 3rd down. Not lethal, but fast. He didn't come to kill. He came to rescue. Inside, alarms screamed. Lights turned red, but Jack had already reached the child's holding room inside the cell. Raelian blinked at the noise. He saw a shadow kick the door open. Smoke behind him. A tall figure stood in the light. Raelian? The human said. The boy nodded, shaking. Jack stepped forward, knelt down, and gently handed him the drawing. "Your mother's waiting." Raelian stared at him. "You're real?" Jack smiled. "Yeah, kid, let's go home." Escape sequence. Blaster. Fire echoed through the halls. Jack lifted Raelian into his arms and sprinted through the market. More guards appeared. Jack used cover, smoke, and short bursts of return fire. Raelian buried his face in Jack's chest. "Don't worry," Jack whispered. "I made a promise." One last gate. One last guard. Jack charged full speed and smashed through it. With his shoulder, they fell into the night rain and kept running. Suspense. Ending. At the edge of the city, far from the flashing lights, Jack slowed down. Raelian was safe in his arms. Breathing, alive, he pressed his cum. "Raja," he said. "I've got him." There was silence. Then a small, broken voice replied, "Is he okay?" Jack looked down at the sleeping boy. "He's better now." Behind him, sirens screamed in the distance. But Jack didn't care, because for the first time in a long time, he had saved someone in time. Asterisk. The sun had not yet risen. The sky outside was dark, heavy with clouds. Inside the small shelter, Raja sat by the window, her eyes wide open, unmoving. She had not blinked for minutes. She was still holding the jacket. She had not eaten, not slept. Her hands trembled as she whispered the same words over and over. "Please. Just once, let this be real." Then the lock clicked. She stood up. So fast the chair fell behind her. The door opened slowly. And there he was. Raelian, covered in a blanket, held in the arms of a man soaked in rain. For a moment, Raja couldn't breathe. Her legs gave out. She collapsed to her knees, but her eyes never left her son. The boy blinked, and then gasped, "Mama!" He broke free from Jack's arms and ran across the room. She opened her arms wide, and he crashed into her chest with such force, it almost knocked her back. She held him like she'd never let go again. Plot continues. Tears rolled down her cheeks, silent, heavy tears that had been waiting for this moment. She kissed Raelian's forehead, his cheeks, his hands. "You're warm. You're alive." Raelian hugged her tighter. "The human saved me." Jack stood at the door, dripping water, breathing hard. Raja looked up at him. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Jack didn't need them. He nodded once. Tired. Then he turned to leave. But Raelian stopped him. "Wait." Jack paused. The boy walked over and held out something, a small stone shaped like a star. "I found this in the slave room," Raelian said. "I wanted to give it to Mama, but I want you to have it." Jack looked at it, then knelt. "You keep it," he said gently. "It's your light, you hold it." The family moment. Later, Raja wrapped Raelian in blankets and held his hand as he ate a warm meal. She sat close to Jack but didn't speak for a long time. Then finally, she asked the question that had burned inside her heart since the first day. "Why did you do all this?" Jack stared at the fire. "I don't know," he said. "Maybe I saw something in you, or maybe I just wanted to do one thing right." Raja looked at him, her eyes soft now, not afraid, not angry, whatever the reason. "Thank you," she whispered. Jack didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence was enough. Suspense ending. That night, while Raelian slept peacefully beside his mother, Jack sat outside the shelter sharpening his old combat knife. His cum crackled to life. A voice whispered, "You stole property. From us, human, you'll pay." Jack narrowed his eyes. He turned off the cum and looked up at the dark sky. "They're coming," he muttered. But this time, he wasn't running. This time, he was going to protect the only family he had left. The stars were quiet. The boy was asleep. And Raja was packing in silence. Her hands moved fast, but careful, folding the blanket, slipping food into a bag, holding her son's little hand as he slept without knowing. She looked around the small shelter one last time. It was warm. It was safe, but it was not hers. She didn't belong here. Not on Earth. not in a human's home. He had been kind, but kindness always had a price. And Reja didn't want to wait for it. She lifted Raelian in her arms and crept to the door. Her hand reached for the handle, but when she opened it, Jack was already standing outside in the dark, leaning against the wall, quiet like a ghost. "I figured you'd try tonight," he said. Reja froze. The cold wind hit her back, but her chest was burning. "You weren't supposed to be awake," she said softly. "I never sleep deep when I have something to protect," Jack replied. Plot continues. Reja didn't move. Raelian stirred in her arms but didn't wake. "I'm not running from you," Reja said. "I'm just trying not to need you." Jack nodded slowly. "I understand," he said. "No," she whispered. "You don't. I've been sold, used, traded like nothing. Every time I started to trust someone, it ended with chains." Her voice shook now. "I'm afraid you'll turn too." Jack stepped closer. "I won't." She looked up at him. "That's what the last one said, right before he locked my son in a cage." Jack's eyes darkened. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small metal ring. He threw it into the dirt. It was her slave tracker, the one the slavers had put on her ankle before he bought her. "I melted it down yesterday," he said. "You've been free since day one." Emotional moment. Reja slowly sank to her knees. Her breath came out in sharp bursts. Jack said nothing. He just sat beside her and looked at the stars. "Why?" she asked again. "Why did you do all this for us?" Jack ran a hand through his hair. His voice came low. "Because no one saved my family, and I've been trying to forgive myself ever since." "I don't want your pity," she said. "Don't have it," he replied. "What I see in you is strength. Real strength, the kind that keeps going, even when it's broken." Tears filled her eyes again, but this time, they didn't fall from fear. They fell from relief, suspense ending. A noise came from the trees nearby. Both of them looked up. Jack pulled out his pistol, calm, ready. "They're here," he said. "Slavers. Tracked us." Reja clutched Raelian close. "What do we do?" Jack stood. "We don't run anymore," he said. He looked down at her and held out his hand. "Stay, fight, or leave now. Either way, you're free." Reja looked at his hand for a long time. Then she placed hers in his. And for the first time, she chose to stay. The battle never came with guns. It came with silence. And fear. And the sound of boots crunching outside. In the dirt, Reja stood by the window, her child in her arms. Jack stood by the door, weapon ready, eyes locked forward. She had stayed. Now the world was coming to test her choice. But even as shadows moved outside, Jack didn't look afraid. He looked steady, like a wall that wouldn't break. And then, the unexpected happened. The boots stopped. No one entered. No one shouted. No one knocked. Just silence. Then the shadows disappeared. Plot continues. Jack opened the door slowly. Empty. No one in sight. Just a small black box left on the ground. He opened it with caution. Inside, a single note, printed in a language both of them could read. "We don't waste time on broken things. Keep your trash." Reja read it and closed her eyes. She was shaking, but Jack crushed the paper in his fist. "Trash," he said, voice low. "You're worth more than all of them." Closure moment. Days passed. The house became a home. Jack built a second room smaller, with stars painted on the ceiling for Raelian. Reja cooked, not just for survival, but with joy. One evening, she walked out onto the porch. Jack sat there, watching the sunset. Raelian ran in circles with a small toy in the grass, and then, without a word, the boy ran up to Jack. He didn't say anything. He just reached up and held Jack's hand. Jack didn't speak either. He just tightened his fingers gently around the boy's. Reja saw it, and in that moment, she knew. They weren't running anymore. They weren't hiding. They were home. Final emotional closing. That night, Under the stars, Reza whispered as she laid beside her son, "Not all humans are monsters." Her son whispered back, smiling, "Minds." A hero, ending line, for impact. He didn't save them because they were his. They became his. Because he chose to save them.